Hey guys and girls, welcome back inside the stash. It is time to take a look at the items received in March of 2023 into the stash. Again, just a little bit of things here. As we stated in the last video, sort of been trying to thin out the top end of the collection as we go. So trying not to completely and totally backfill the spaces. Oh, look, there's space on that shelf. I must have plugged it with something. But we did pick up a few things. One new kit release here domestically, and then our usual Hobby Link Japan type things. Got a couple more sheets of decals in, which I'm sure shocks absolutely none of you. But yeah, let's go ahead and get going here. So the one kit that I did pick up that is a brand new release from round 2 over at AMT is the new Craftsman Plus 68 Pontiac GTO kit. The one that, depending on who you listen to online, is the biggest waste of money you've ever seen, or not, because there's no engine and it's a curbside, because this is based on an original promo tooling, not the original NPC kit from 1968. So yeah, depending on the order that you receive these videos, you may be seeing this before you see the kit review that I have filmed for this. Right now I have, I don't know, a half dozen things sitting and editing that I just, like, I know I have the time to do it, but I just don't have the wherewithal, the gumption, if one would say, to do it. But I'm going to be doing a kit review of this just to sort of go over it and see what it is, because it's a brand new kit, right? I have not seen anyone do one of this yet. So yeah, that'll be the generalized plan. And there's sort of the guts of the kit right there. The body does come unwrapped. It is just sitting in the packaging. And then you have the 90 or so parts that make up this curbside, which is a pretty big amount of content for a curbside when it comes down to it. There are 2 sets of wheels in here, which I guess adds 4 parts. But yeah, at some point in the very near future, you should see a in-depth review of that kit. So we picked that up just last weekend or so at a little local swap meet that was held by one of our, I don't want to say it to be insulting, but it's sort of one of our second tier clubs. Locally here in Pittsburgh, we usually have 4 shows a year. There were used to be 5, but our club, the one I was in originally, from moving here, disbanded after the show, 2 years ago now. So we have our big car model show in September. That club's been around forever, since I was a kid. We have the IPMS club show, which I now belong to the IPMS club here in Pittsburgh. And we just had our show 2 weeks ago. And then there are 2 small clubs that are basically one-man show kind of things that take place later in the fall. Usually both of them are in October. And one of these guys, decided to have a swap meet in the spring, which worked out for him. He had a nice, good turnout. It was basically the first car-related show in Pittsburgh, because, again, our show doesn't exist, and it used to be the first one. So, yeah, grab that there. So, over at Hobby Link Japan, we picked up 4 total items, one of which is the Alpha Models Porsche 911 GT3 RS 2016. They did do a GT3 in this sort of body style, but it's a 2018, which makes it a 991.2. This is a 991.1, or it's a 992.1. I can never keep straight these sort of later versions of the 911 with their numbering system, because it went backwards at one point. But this is the earlier version. Basically, if you have the 2018 kit, this is a little bit earlier, has a different front fascia to it, and a couple of aero things are different about it. In addition to it being an RS rather than just a GT3, there's also the fact that it's the original one of these, and then the one that came after it is the revised version. And then, of course, they have the brand new GT3 RS, the 2022 one that they just released. It's got a blue car on the box art. But anyway, got this in here. It's your usual Alpha model fare, in the sense of having directions and a bunch of resin. This is the second kit I've gotten in a row that had an A-pillar gone all, sort of astray. Actually, the B-pillar on here is snapped. It's not attached to anything, because this got squished at some point. I can raise a ruckus, and it's something that I shouldn't have to deal with what these things cost, but it's an easy fix to get it back straight. So the amount of nonsense I have to go through for a new body, when this one, again, it's very serviceable and fixable. It's not worth the effort. You'll once this is once you apply a little heat here to straighten this little bit of a bend to it and put this B pillar back in, you'll never know it was anything wrong with it in the first place. But it is kind of a little bit again annoying, because like, why must you damage my $200 model kit? But anyway, yeah, just your usual fare here in terms of parts breakdown. It does not have an engine in it, but it does have a little bit of engraving on the chassis pan itself, and then you've got the exhaust manifolds and going into the muffler for that. So overall, pretty much what you'd expect. This is one of those kits that's out of production with Alpha models as well. They've sold all 100 of these that they've made. That's why we picked this up at Hobbylink Japan for a slightly higher price than we would normally pay for things, because you can't find it anywhere. So that's the other part of like, oh, I need a new body, which there just aren't any left. So it's, again, something I shouldn't have to fix, but it is completely and totally fixable to the point where causing a fuss isn't really worth the effort for the results that I'm going to get, which would be another body that looks just like that one, only maybe a little bit straighter on the A-pillar. On terms of kits, we picked up that 1964 Japanese Grand Prix Prince, prior to being Nissan, Skyline. These are pretty nice little kits. I have the road versions of these. They made the regular like street stock version, showroom stock version of these kits as well. They're very nice kits in terms of parts content. It is a sort of somewhat modern kit in the sense that your chassis has, some parts molded to it. So you've got the prop shaft and the engine, transmission, and stuff like that. I had to turn my bigger overhead light on. I realize it's awful dim in here. There we go. That's better. And, part of the exhaust is molded to it, but the rear suspension, front suspension, all that stuff is separate. It's not metal axles. It doesn't have the tongue depressor things where you beat the rivets into the wheels and stuff like that. So it is a somewhat modern tooling. I think this was done originally in the mid-1990s, I want to say. It's got like a one-piece glass that's a relic of an older time. But again, there's lots of separate parts. The door panels are separate. It builds up as a platform-style interior in that way. Body is pretty decent, in terms of like mold line and stuff like that. It's a cute little car, a little four-door Skyline back in the day there. And then the decals here, they're specific to the one car, so it's a tiny little sheet, and it's, the roundels, and it's the GT2 class markings. You have the little duct tape spider webs for the headlights, and then you have all of the scripting for the skylines and the dash cluster, stuff like that. So basic decals for a basic car. Wasn't a lot going on livery-wise back in 1964. Again, this type of race car would have been something that was driven to the track, raced, and then taken and driven home. So it's got a real license plate on it, and you would just take your headlight protectors off and make your way on down the road. So this is a cool little kit. This has been out before, this whole scheme and whatnot, but I didn't grab one. I don't even think I was back in the hobby the last time this was reissued, so good to have a nice vintage race car. This one is Hasegawa. This is the 1995 Rally Thailand winner. I got this and I kind of thought, well, like, why did I buy another rally car? Like the last thing I need. I haven't even built an entire rally car yet. I have several that I've started, but I have not built a rally car yet. I still keep acquiring rally kits. I think it's the winner was the kick, right? It was like, oh, winning car. Yeah, you have to have that. This is pretty much your standard Evo 3 fare. It does come with a fret of PE in here. Got pedal sets. You got all the seatbelt material. This red stuff that looks like a deflated balloon, that's supposed to be your seatbelt material, which is why, if you remember, months, weeks, years ago, I bought all that ribbon so that when I do these and plumb the seatbelt, I don't have to use this weird janky stuff. And overall, yeah, it's an Evo 3. Nothing to see here in terms of an Evo. Any of these Evo rally kits, they're all the same, basically. The only difference is like what wheel sets are with it and stuff like that. This two-tone white and yellow, you have to paint yourself. They give you like the divider lines between the colors. But overall, this is pretty much what it is. And then you have, it's in white, so it's hard to get on there. You have Tommy Mäkinen. Is it Tommy Mäkinen on this one? I can't even see. I can't even see. this because it's white printing on a white back on a light blue background. Yeah, it is. No, it's not. Huh. I thought this was a Tommy Mackinnon car. Let's pull the literature out because I'm not trying to read that crap. Oh, it is Tommy Mackinnon. So, yeah, I was right. Tommy Mackinnon, blah, 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 wins Thailand Rally. Finished 5th overall in the WRC that year. So, yeah. Anyway, I think there's, you know, it's a sort of a divided line coming down here as far as your yellow goes. So you have to paint the two-tone yourself. I'm not sure if there's an actual guide to this or not. Some of these kits have better... Yeah, there you go. Some of these newer rally releases actually have a, you know... Okay, so this is white, and then this is yellow, and this is yellow, and, you know, this is how this all divides up. So that's nice. A lot of the older, like, 90s, 2000s versions of these rally kits, it's like, hey, there's a two-tone on here. See decal guide for more information. And it's like, you got to try to guess based on the decal placement sheet, which is a lot of stuff and a lot of arrows and a lot of lines pointing all over the place, exactly where your dividers are. So anyway, that's a nice little bit, but again, I probably didn't really need this kit. I can't promise this kit will ever see the light of day once it goes up onto the shelf. And the last thing from Hobbylink Japan is the Tom's Corolla 1991 JTTC car from Toyota Team Tom's. So this is one of those cars that is I'm trying to think of how that participation car, which is the way Hasegawa words, which must be a literal English to Japanese translation thing, of cars that didn't actually do that great in terms of the season. They participated. This is a participation award right here. But it's cool, the cool little livery for an sort of also ran car. There's not a lot of 1991 JTCC kits that they've done, so having this plug a hole within the multiverse of Japanese touring cars, kind of nice as well. This is, again, standard fare for any of these kits that you've seen. We just looked at one in the last video. This is the same kit again. Pretty much nothing new about this kit at all, other than the decal sheet here, which does have some, does have the silver to it. It's not quite as vibrant a silver as the sheet of decals I got from Decal Pool, which again, it might be one of those things where I use those decals rather than these decals. But yeah, it's a cool little livery. Division 3 car. 91 would have been still during the Group A year, so this is a low tier budget race team. And it just mentions down here, you can pause if you want to read it, but that's the people, the gentleman driving the car in the 91 season. So they didn't place well enough to even have a mention as to, like, hey, they got a 5th in the last race of the year or something like that. I think they finished 8th overall once, or within the class, I should say, not overall. But yeah. It is what it is in that sense, but it's still cool to have, to me anyway. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, these things, but it is mine, and I'm happy to have something yeah. It is kind of funny that I bought a set of decals to build that car, and then Hasegawa, like 3 months later, is like, oh, hey, yo, have a kit of it. I'm like, oh, okay, sure, all right. And then the last thing that we have is this, which I think we're going to zoom out to get into the picture entirely, yes. The new bell kits, and this is a 10th anniversary edition. 2021 didn't come out till 2023. Oops, box art, lies. The 12th anniversary edition of their kits. And this is 2019 Tour de Course winning Hyundai i20 WRC. Obviously, you can read a box art. I don't have to read it to you. This is, of course, done specifically because these are Belgian drivers and Belgian co-driver, or navigator, however you want to look at that. It's not really co-driving. It's not, he's got to take the wheel and drive 5 hours of it, the rally. But the navigator and the co-pilot there, and Thierry Neuville as the race winner. So, 10th anniversary, Bell Kits Belgium, Belgian drivers, yay! It's a synergy. This is a pretty cool kit, I gotta say. Bell kits, have that whole reputation of whether or not they go together real well or not, and the instructions being vague and whatnot. And there's a lot going on with this kit. You're gonna have to sit down with the instructions and do a little bit of a study hall with it, just to figure out what the hell's going on, because there are quite a bit of parts in here, so much so that I couldn't actually get the box back closed again. It just came downstairs and sort of like stuffed off to the side, so nothing got put on top of it. But there's a lot of plastic in this box, as you can see, quite a bit. I'm gonna probably probably, this is not a priority to me, so this one will come along at some point in the future, but not going to be like anytime pending like the GTO will. Probably do a kit review of this at some point, just take a look at it. But yeah, there's quite a bit going on here. We've got, the chassis in that last one. You have the interior platform in this one. There's 2 racing seats here. There's another racing seat or navigator seat or something here. You see there's a 2020 version of this, which I don't know if it has different parts to it or not, but there seems to be like things added, to this runner, so there could be other things that come out of this. I'm not exactly sure what the total plans are for this. Usually they do 2 releases of a kit and that's it. You have your normal 5 wheels with one having the lug nuts drilled out for being the spare inside the car. The body on this is kind of angular because a bunch of the over fenders and stuff like that are obviously added separately, which makes it easier to mold, easier to come out of the mold. No mold lines of those parts because they would have some really sharp angles to them, which means that this body shell really is clean. It doesn't have a lot in the terms of like big stand-up mold lines. That GTO, it's the same thing. That 68 GTO has very little in the way of mold lines on it either. So good to see new bodies being done cleanly. You have the glass, you have more parts here. There's a lot of suspension components in the rear wing in here. We have all of the roll caging and all of that in here. And then this is the over fenders, front and back, your under trays, your front lip spoilers and stuff like that. You got your usual rubber runner in here, which has like some duct work, your poly caps, and the in this case, these are mud guards for the chassis on the inside. Then, of course, you got 5 tires in there, for one for the spare. And then you got the big old Ziploc baggie of goods here, which has all of the decals. If I think about it afterwards, I'll put still photos up of the decals because I took them all out once, and I'm not about to do that right now again because this is one of these self-sealing envelopes. It's just a pain in the ass to get open and closed. But there's this whole sheet on top here is all carbon fiber. You've got the Kevlar stuff for like the door panels and stuff like that. You've got twill for the seats, and then you've got the spoiler areas all in here as well. And then the bigger one of the livery itself. There's also some Hyundai Chrome logo decals as well for the front and rear Hyundai logos. And then there's a sheet of decals about this big that has a little bit of the twill carbon fiber, a little bit of the Kevlar carbon fiber, a little bit of the twill carbon fiber, and then the red and the blue that I'll show you in the box art here in a second as far as the livery goes, so you can patch decals if you happen to tear them, which is a nice thing that a lot of companies don't actually do. Here's your overall livery on the back here. All you need to do to build this car in terms of painting is paint this light blue. I happen to also, with this kit, pick up the Hyundai Performance Blue. This is Fire Scale. This is DM model kits out of Portugal's paint line. And they were one of the first places in the EU that would sell outside of the EU that had these kits. So that's why I got this from. And like I said, I got this. The blue it needs to be shaken up, but printing on paper is never going to be the same color as paint is in real life, but it's pretty close overall. And you just paint the car blue, and then all of this red and all of this dark blue is on the decal sheet. So like I said, they give you 2 swatches of that color that are just rectangles of it that you can go through, and if you happen to break a decal around a sharp corner or something like that, you can patch the decal, which again, like I said, is a pretty nice feature that you don't see a lot of times in a production model kit. And then lastly, a couple of decals from MF Zone. These guys are in, I want to say it's Czechoslovakia. I believe that's where they're at. No, they're in Poland, excuse me. They're a Polish manufacturer. Let's zoom back in so you don't see my floor anymore. These are from Ford Sierra Cosworth 4x4. So this is the D model kit's 4-door sedan kit that just came out a few months ago. And these are Group N cars, so you will need, at some point, some sort of conversion for them to put in the regular street headlights. They don't have the performance headlights the kits come with. I know KMP is working on that right now. I'm sure some other people will as well, because at this point, there's something like a half a dozen Group N decals floating around that you can't actually legitimately build correctly because the headlights aren't the right ones. And then you need mirrors and wheels and things like that. But there's, for the Raleigh Poland 1992... you have this Marlboro liveried concoction here, which also has camel livery on the door placards. So this is 2 times the cigarettes. It's a very little decal sheet. Now this has a protective coating on it, so that don't like be all like, oh, they're weird looking. There's just a wax paper thing on here. So yeah, it's a pretty simple livery. Just the placards and the Marlboro. That's a nice. They pop on camera more than they do in real life through this. Obviously, these web cameras can see through this wax paper better than the actual naked eye can. But yeah, so you obviously got to paint the two-tone yourself. But overall, a cool little car in the sense of just an oddball thing. If you get one of this sets, you'll be like the other person in the United States who could build this car. And then this one is the Rally Condros 1992 car, and it is a FINA-sponsored vehicle. This is a really simple basic decal sheet because you very little color on here, just the hood stripes, and then this one in the back here. And then there's not really a whole heck of a lot else going on with this, as you'll see here. You've just got your FINA logos and the placards for pretty much the hood and the trunk. There aren't really even door placards in this, but yeah, it's again a cool little also livery that goes along with it. And you're like, why would you buy decals that you can't build a car for? Well, I already did that with all those Audi A4 decals because that kit still hasn't come out yet. But those decals from MF Zone, even though they're screen printed, they're done in a very limited production. You don't see them very often in terms of being for resale. Like, they don't vend outside of their own sources very much. So if you do come across those, and again, those came from D Model Kits in Portugal, I grab them. Now, whether or not I'll ever do anything with them, I couldn't tell you, but at least I have them. And trying to find those things on resale usually ends up being a $40 proposition when they're like $20 sets of decals. So get them if you want them, get them while you can, because you may not be able to get them later for a reasonable price. And the last thing we're talking about here is another set of the Platts license plates for JDM cars. I can't remember what these are for. I'm not going to put the little thing up on the screen to translate them, but because they're just cool. You have the normal fare here where you have three plates from three different prefectures already pre-decorated for less than 2,500cc cars. So this is your Celicas, your Silvias, some sedans. This is not K cars, so you can't put these on a K car because that's too small a displacement, and there's actually a separate license plate for K cars. But anything with less than 2,500 cc's, so like 3 liters or less, more or less, or 2.5 liters or less on a car. And then you have the undecorated ones with the big decal sheet here, where you can make these be K cars, you can make them commercial trucks, you can make them, performance cars, large sedans, all that stuff by changing out the little designators for the Japanese printing, and then what the class of the car is with these little numbers, and then of course you make your own license plate down here with the numbers. So these are cool. This is like the 5th or 6th set of these that exist. There's another one coming in May. So James over Scale Model Experiment asked me, what are you going to use these on? I'm like, I don't know, a Japanese car at some point. But again, they're already pre-painted, they're pre-decorated. None of these numbers repeat within the series, so it's not like it's the same plate with a different background over and over again. And then you can make your own if you want to make something else. It's 6 license plates for $12, and they're already, and half of them are already done. I don't think you could really go wrong with this if you have a collection of JDM cars. Now, if you have like a couple of GTRs and they're, because they were cheap Tamiya kits, and you happen to like R32s, yeah, okay, you don't need these. But if you have a collection of JDM cars and you're looking for something beyond the, build it yourself plate sets that come in a lot of the kits, this is a nice viable option. You even get little bolts for bolting the license plates on, so they aren't just free floating in the thing. So yeah, I think it's worthwhile. So anyway, guys, that wraps up this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, under 25 minutes for 2 videos in a row. You gotta love that. And we'll see you guys on the other side.